A lot, and then Doge.
What's going on, everyone?
G'day. Special night, but a somber night. A bit of a cheers to our old mate Dara. Evening, lads. Dara was an OG that joined us ages and ages ago. We were just discussing it a minute ago with some of our OG boys here as well. And he's a bit of a character, and sadly found out some sad news the other week that he had passed on. So he's 100x leverage trading in the sky now, and himself, I hope. He's an absolute legend. So here's to Dara, and cheers to him. So we'll raise a glass to Dara tonight.
Very good.
That sucked to hear that. That actually fucking sucked.
Dara was with us basically from the start of UTG.
Yeah.
Up until February this year.
Yeah, and I was actually we did a few months of like one-on-one mentoring with Dara behind the scenes after he found us on Twitter, and I was just going back through some of these ones here, dating back to. Man, I'm still going through. There was he charted a lot back to like the start of 2020. Is when we first did like one of our first sessions with him, but he joined us like back in like early 2019, maybe even like late 2018, I think. And he was actually one of the first things we started talking about. He was in Thailand at the time, and he said, we're in what they have designated as a red zone. So you can only go to the local shops until mid-June. And then, and then it just sort of carried on from there for a long time. And sadly, he lost his battle with some illness a little while ago. So that sucked. But Art, you spoke to him a lot, Art. I know, or like you seem to have like the connections on Dara. What was that?
A while ago, Dara had just randomly sent through a link for me for this 10 bagger club.
Yeah.
These guys that do stocks, they're just mental. these guys are just mental. That like the figures that they throw around are just stupid. And Darren knew the guy, one of the main guys who had started it. He was actually staying in this bloke's house in Thailand, like in Phuket. Like they knew each other, because I think this guy Colin he's an expat, he's a British expat, and so I gathered that there was a connection there, and I exchanged a few DMs with Colin, and then I sort of was asking after Darragh all the time because I couldn't understand why Darragh had just sort of randomly picked me. I think maybe Jack he sent you a link as well, did he?
Yeah, man, he did. Yeah,
but random. And so after that, I always just followed up just to see where he was at. And then when I heard that he was really ill, then I sort of every couple of months I'd send a message, and it'd be a month before I heard anything back. Yeah, so.
Well, we lost one of the good ones, but let's have a bit of fun tonight. Get into some charts, just shoot the shit, raise a glass, and see what we can find out here in the market. It's rife at the moment. There is just things going left and right, and we only get this a few times a year, and they get shorter and more aggressive. These little sessions that we have, or these little alt storms that we have. So. For myself, I was just saying to the boys before, and of course, anything that we share here, if you are watching this is just how we trade and what we do. Please don't jump into any coins based on what we say or assets. We all are individual and what we do. But certainly the majors leading the charge, and a few things that I'll share. We're looking at Bitcoin at the moment, but I was just saying to the boys beforehand, every time you see this, that old adage that the markets don't repeat, but they often rhyme is so true, because being in this for a few years now, you look at how the market reacts, you look at certain coins, you pay attention to certain coins and their correlation to BTC. And one that I've really been paying attention to this sort of little mini storm or cycle, whatever it is that you want to call it, is Neo. And then you see ADA doing the same things. ADA tends to have more like aggressive upside moves, but consistent, prolonged upside moves, whereas a lot of coins will have parabolic moves. Like we look at I'm just going to bring it up on my chart. CVC was one that we charted a little while ago, and Fergs, who's one of our captains, caught the move on that. Where it had, it has very aggressive, like 30-40% candles, and then it kind of simmers out, and then it'll sort of die out a little bit. Whereas ADA, XRP is another one. They tend to have very big parabolic moves. They'll consolidate for short periods and then just blast off again. And that's kind of what we're seeing at the moment. And LTC, I know we're looking at BTC right now, but LTC is really one that I'm watching this cycle as well. So let's have a look at BTC at the moment, Ads, what you're seeing on the chart here right now as we sort of head towards this supply at around that 48K zone, as we consolidated around that 29-30K level. And then we had that dip from 42 down to sort of 37. We recovered pretty well from that. And that 48K zone is really the likely next zone, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's the level at the top that we've been speaking about over the course of this week during the live sessions, during not the live sessions, but the market updates that we've been posting on TradingView. And if you haven't followed us on TradingView, you can find all the links down below in the description, either now or after the stream is done. When it comes down to BTC, what I'm really looking at is, it's going to be. And I've been saying this all week when it comes down to, a critical point or a critical time when it comes down to Bitcoin. But it's no time like the present for BTC, because we've really been observing, this level here at around 46,800. And yesterday I did mention, if we look on the lower time frames, you can really see like a double top scenario playing out in this instance. And that's what really caused the movement to the downside. And we did break through the 23.6, but the buyback has been quite significant. But the volume has not been. So it leads me to believe that we might see some more resistance up at this 46,800 level before, ultimately making a decision on, are we going to retest 48K, or are we going to see, some of these lower extremities like the 38.50 and the 61 as we've been discussing this week, Ty?
Yeah, and that video that we posted earlier on in the week where we spoke about W's and M's and double tops and double bottom sort of formations, like where we talk about this being that double bottom pattern. The Eth was the one that we was talking about, and like you rightfully said a moment ago, you've got that formation up here on the lower time frames, that sort of double top formation. But because we made this this higher low to what we have here, I think we'll make that run up to 48k pretty confidently. But it's funny how a lot of people, like, we talk about the 40, you go back like a month ago, people are like, fuck, you've got a short 48k, like that's like, that's the end of this sort of run. And then now how times have changed, everyone's like, no, fuck 48k, we're buying into resistance. Headed up, like how quickly the sentiment changes in this market. So we either get like a blow off top and then perhaps a consolidation, but I think that I definitely think we'll run up to that 48k. And ideally, what I'd really like to see is whether we range between this supply and demand for a little while. I think in the immediate term it would drag alts down, but I think if BTC can continue to consolidate and range for a little while, we'll have like a sick little alt run, and it will continue on with what we've had seen at the moment. I think we're only really just getting warmed up with a lot of these alts. Things are popping left, right, and center. And as I said to the boys a moment ago, you only kind of get a few opportunities throughout the year to be trading this aggressively when it comes to alts in particular. If you're a new trader, stick to your majors being XRP, BTC, ETH, LTC, XRP, ADA. You might want to throw in like a slightly lower cap, like a NEO or an ETC. BNB, for example, are going to be your safe bets when you're trading in this market. But and it's not just financial advice, but with all the tools that we give you, like things whether it be like the trading room scanner, the laws of supply and demand, looking at your daily time frames, your higher time frames, like there are so many good setups at the moment. And with where we are now, I'm going more towards the higher time frames. Like I'm finding that I'm not looking at the lower time frames as much, and I'm sitting on trades for a little bit longer. And I'm not as like cautious during dips. Like I'm buying dips a little bit more aggressively than what I would otherwise, where I would scale out of positions. But again, the old adages stay true. Like I'm setting plenty of take profit levels on the way up in case we get like a mega dip coming towards this area, because there's every opportunity. Like, I think we'll make that supply no probs. But you've always got to be mindful of like that area being front run as well, and people taking profit as we get to that level, or having that blow off top, and then people taking a lot of profit as the retail buyers buy into that level of resistance. So you've always got to have your wits about you. But yeah, I'm scaling into more positions and I'm letting them ride. I've got a few that I'm just sat there, and I'm not really concerned about what they do, to be honest. They're long-term holds.
Sorry to circle back, but we've had a lot of new people join the Discord, new people join the group over the past couple of weeks with the influx of fresh faces from TradingView. Explain to them what front run is.
Sure. So front run. So obviously, if you're looking at like whether it be a formation, whether you're looking at volume, levels of supply and demand, you're not the only person that's doing that. So there's many other people that are looking at the exact same levels of you as you, particularly if you're using supply and demand. So if you imagine, a lot of people have buys set at, let me just annotate for you. They might have buys set at this level, or they might have sells or take profits set at these particular levels. So the risk that you run is having people sort of start to take profit not at these significant zones and price reverse from here rather than within your sort of supply zone. So that's why we always talk about taking profits on the ways up and not looking for like exact dollar amounts to take profits on long positions, spot buys, whatever it is that it might be. So the value of taking profit along the way and not sticking and going, I'm going to buy down here and I'm going to sell up here. That's a fool's errand, because it won't always play out like that. So if you take profit along the way, you're securing those dollars. And then if we do get a sell-off at these major levels, and you've got your fiat or your cash there waiting on the side to buy the dip.
Very well said, my friend. And that's the same thing I employ in my strategy, to be honest, in regards to selling into liquidity. And obviously 100%. Buying into liquidity as well. You're selling into the people that are buying at these levels, and it's really key to identify some of the levels that a lot of people are other people, are looking at as well.
Especially this zone. This
absolutely.
is a significant supply zone. This is like the top of this, this huge big range that we've been in. So, there's areas where you can be cautious on the whole way up here, but this is definitely the area where we need to be cautious for
absolutely.
sure.
And the 48,000 in terms of supply that we see here runs pretty much all the way to 50k, and 50k being that round psychological resistance, typically, I think is very important. And most notably, of course, we've got this level of supply here, which is probably a little bit too big, how it's drawn in currently. But we have all this liquidity sitting at this point, from 48k to 50k, and 50k is probably going to be more notable than 48 in this instance. But we do need to, take this zone as it stands, as a varied or a general area. Because there's going to be fireworks around this 50,000 level, and I think it's something that it's on a lot of people's minds in regards to a psychological round number. So it's something to
you took the words out of my mouth. I remember like 10k being like a super round psychological number. 5k, 10k, 20k, we're like, holy shit, like this is insane. Now we're talking about 50k or 60k being these psychological round numbers. It's like it's an incredible time to be a trader, and how different this realm is now to what it was 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 12 months ago. It's insane.
What would you we were looking at back when BTC fell from 6 to 3.5.
I remember being in a meeting and I messaged you as I was like, I was having like anyway, it doesn't matter what I was doing, but I was in a meeting and I had Trading View up, and I said to Az, I'm like, holy fuck, there's no way I'm paying attention in this meeting right now, because we were all getting rug pulled so severely during that. It was a crazy time. Yeah, I remember when ETH was $200, so like it dipped to like $60 or $70, and then it was $232, and then it was $400. I remember at $700 and $800, like however long ago that was, like 8-9 months ago. We're like, holy shit, this will never last. Here we are at like 3.5k. It's insane.
I remember having a conversation. I can't even remember who it was with, but we bought ETH at like $400, and I'm like, fuck, we bought the bottom. What could possibly go wrong from here?
Oh man, how times change. All right, well, should we have a look at ETH on that note?
Yeah, we should. We definitely should. And boys as well, the guys that are on our Zoom, that you can see
chime in,
on the left-hand side of your screen, you can see all their lovely faces. Chime in if you would like to. And I haven't looked at this particular chart on ETH in some time, because I've been really focusing on the BTC updates as of late. But let's have a look on the fly.
No, you got to go to your AA watch list, man.
Oh, right. There we go. Hey.
Tex doesn't want you drawing on his charts. That's
yeah. No, sorry, man. I'm like, I must have deleted the chart or something like that. I could have sworn I had some sort of TA for ETH. I do look at it at some point. I'll just nip up the zones though. Get rid of some of the. It's really in the very similar position as BTC, in the sense of we've got a major level of supply coming up. From a massive leg down, and when it comes to these levels here, you've got a candle that really draws or identifies the zone, which is really of nice size, and then you've got a massive leg out of that zone, and this is the liquidity, not so much even just the level of supply that you've got, but just this liquidity in general, even to the left of that, caused that movement to the downside. So it is the most notable level, in my opinion, for this move. And you've got, sorry about the flicking around, but you've got a lot of liquidity sitting to the left-hand side of it as well. Exactly the same scenario as BTC. So it is the most relevant level currently at 3,300. And we're not too far away. We're only about $80 away from 3,300, even 3,350, in which that level resides as well. So it's pretty much going to be a given if we do start to make some liquidity past this level to the left-hand side, and that's going to be more noted on a lower time frame, like a 30 or a 1 hour. But it looks like we're probably going to get a bit of a pullback for the guys who play on the smaller time frames before a movement to the upside, which will probably happen over the course of the weekend if we're lucky.
Yeah, we'll probably see it leading into the weekly close next week, where things start to ramp up before they simmer down a little bit. But yeah, I agree with you in that sort of sense. For myself, because I'm on the daily time frames, I've drawn my my fibs from the swing high being up at around 2800 back down to sort of the 1744 level, and where we sit right now on my fib chart is right on that 127 level, where yesterday we said, or the day before, whether it be the 127 extension or it be your 27 extension, like it always acts as a significant level of support or resistance, depending on whether you're on the 27 extension or the 127 extension. And if we can clear that, being that sort of that 3250 or 3225 level, then I'll definitely look up towards that 3400 zone to sort of start taking profits on where I am now. But I think, again, with my investor hat on, F is going to be the one to watch this year. Now, with that upgrade and where we sit now, and the cost of fees and everything that's associated with F and sort of the direction that they're going, I think it will outperform BTC for the remainder of the year and for next year perhaps as well. I think if you have that investor mindset, then F is definitely one that you want to be looking at long term. In my opinion.
Absolutely. JB, have you got a chart drawn up for ETH?
Yeah, I was just looking at it at the moment, actually.
You want to share your screen?
Yeah, hang on. I'll have to join the Zoom on this computer because I'm using my laptop for the stream.
Even if you want to share your screen, Ty, get your relevant levels on there as well.
I have multiple ETH charts, I'm not going to lie.
Oh.
I like to chart across many different charts.
At the chart? There you go. That's how many there are. That's what he's more referring to. But throw in the chat what you guys want to see. If you have any charts that you guys are looking at, whether it's myself, whether it's Ty, whether it's JB, Dill, Art, whoever wants to look at any chart in particular, we can have a quick suss. You can even share someone else's screen. Look at the weekly, Rob says. Look at the weekly. Sorry, I'm just monitoring some of the chat as well. Weekly's got plenty of room, Ty.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
RSI bouncing off the 50. Steamroller still pointing up, although a little bit exhausted.
What does Gravy Train or Unicon tell us?
Let's have a look at Gravy Train. Gravy Train, mate, doesn't disappoint. Still very much in the green. Nice bounce off our cloud or level of supply, whichever one you are using at the time, but still very relevant. The train's always been accurate, man.
It's ludicrous. Unicon, I've said this for ages, Unicon is undoubtedly the most accurate indicator on the ETH daily time frame of anything I've ever seen before. If you go to the daily time frame and turn on the not the EMA cross signal, but there's the super trend exit on the daily on ETH, it's just insanity. It's absolute insanity. It's like a money printer.
Yeah, there you go.
Zoom's being a bitch on that computer, so I'll just go to TradingView on this computer. That'll be.
That's up to you, man. If you want to do it or not.
Yeah. Actually got some alright ideas about this, I think, maybe at the moment.
You've been sharing a lot of your trading strategies as of late, JB. They're super interesting.
Yeah, mate,
Seems
it's been very
like
convincing, and
You've really found your style.
Yeah, I definitely have. I think.
I remember a couple of years ago, or even a few years ago, that was like the number one thing that you struggled with was like, I think you went through and were doing like was it the Eagle strategy?
Falcon, yeah.
The Falcon Eagle, the Falcon.
Close.
Yeah, and I think that was a turning point for you where you started developing something that worked quite well for you, and then you adapted that to Forex, brought it over to crypto, and then now where you are is just insane, man. You dialed in.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny because the strategies themselves are actually pretty similar. Like the way that they use the patterns and the way that they work with price action is actually quite similar.
Yeah.
So I've just found that I didn't really click as much with the Falcon strategy as I have with this one. This thing has just been crazy. Like I see the market in a whole new way now. So
we've just had a question. Can you please explain Gravy Train? So I'll do a crash course.
Sweet.
With Gravy Train, you've got basically three zones that are mainly in the indicator. You've got grey, you've got green, you've got red. Essentially, red is basically the indicator is telling you the market is due for a downside, or it is currently in a downwards trend on that time frame that you're looking at, and it works on all time frames pretty much. 5 minutes all the way up to a daily, even longer than that if you like. And essentially, when it crosses green, then the indicator is telling you that the trend is now going to the upside. But it doesn't stop there. When we see a green indicator, we usually look at the cloud structure that's forming. And if you want to usually catch the next move, if you want to catch an entry on a pullback, you can always have orders resting on or even just above the cloud structure because it acts as a hidden level of support. And then you can catch a move to the upside and it will continue upwards. And then essentially as soon as the price action starts to move down back into the cloud, you're going to see this gray structure forming on the left-hand side. And that essentially tells you to cut that trade, whether it be to the upside or to the downside. So that's a very, very simple way to use Gravy Train, but there's a lot more in it. You need to really spend some time with it and develop the strategy around it.
Yeah, Gravy Train was originally developed as a scalping tool.
Yeah.
That was it's a beast on the smaller time frames. Like in particular for me, the 15-minute and the 30-minute Gravy Train like works on anything, and when you dial that in, it's an absolute beast. But then as we started looking at more and more assets on the higher time frames, we started making tweaks and developing a little bit more, and obviously it just continued to work on more and more pairs that we trialed it on. So it really works for anything. Whether you're a scalper, there's settings for that. Whether you're a swing trader like us, there's settings for that. And then you pair that with the likes of something like Steamroller or our other indicators that we have, Unicon. It's a weapon. It's really, really incredible how it works. I think we've actually we've just written a full guide on exactly how to use Gravy Train as well. So it's a step-by-step guide on how to use it.
Let's jump on with JB, I think. Let's see what sort of charts he's got throwing at us tonight.
You see it?
Yep, I see it.
So, I mean, most of you know I'll always only look at the 1 hour time frame for my strategy. I don't really ever look at anything up above that. But when you were talking before, I was just having a look at this here. And like, my strategy is based around the 1 hour, but the price action is the same, like across the time frames. So I'll just delete this shit. So what I can see right here is every time this high is broken, we're getting selling. So it's telling me that right there, someone big is selling quite extremely, or maybe they're like taking a big position to the downside.
Yeah.
Although when you look over here, on both the way up and the way down, these levels, they're not really that. I wouldn't call them that strong. We don't have much structure. We don't have much information about what's there. We've got a retrace and then a continuation almost straight away. And then on the way down, same thing. So what I think I'll be looking for is if this keeps just descending and retracing, sort of like just making its way up like this. I don't know how I'm going to go drawing with a fucking touchpad, but I'll give it a crack. So if we kind of just keep doing this, I would probably be inclined to think that we're going to move down. But at the same time, what could happen is that same formation and then we get like the opposite. So a little descending and then that way. So the price action will tell us, well, it'll show what's going to happen, really. We just have to be ready and waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it, I think. The 1 hour, I mean, I've had a few trades in here. I caught this move right here the other day, just off that same 2 highs and 2 lows pattern I always go on about. And then, just the other one up here. So that's one pattern that I use right here. Highs and lows, and then a counter trend green candle, which is right there. I'll fucking move that shit so you can see it.
Yeah.
Which is the trigger for entry.
Yeah, right.
So technically, that's where I should have entered, but just from my back testing, I managed to pull an entry out here. Pretty good. Rode it up, and then risk management took me out and also gave me the next opportunity right here. Sell, and got taken out earlier today on this move here. And like the way that this price action is now, excuse me, I'm just sitting and waiting because it's not really telling me anything except we're stalled. So I need to see either highs being broken and retraces for a move to the downside, or the opposite, lows, a little bit of a descending to move to the upside, or retest these levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's about it, I think.
Very interesting.
From my from just my testing and time using this strategy on ETH, it is actually surprisingly accurate. Like I've tried to do the same thing on Bitcoin, but it's way different. You never get the same, like you never get a nice, well, you don't never get, you rarely ever get it where it looks that nice, a perfect setup, break, retest, and down. Like I saw that candle right there, I saw when I was at work on a roof, wiring up an aircon unit, and I got out my phone and I market sold and rode that for like a 2% account gain, you know what I mean? So I've gotten to the point where you can just see the setup, even though you might think that looks bullish, the setup is the setup, and I just play it the same way every time. If it goes bullish, just got to accept that. That's part of the game.
Yeah, of course.
But the probabilities are the setups play out. So yeah.
What are like the I'm sorry if I missed a couple of things that you said just there, JB, but what are some of the like go-to formations, not so much on ETH, but what about on other assets, like where you see formations like that and you're like, right, this is how it's going to play out, and it often does. What are some of the ones that you see on BTC?
It's mostly, well, see, BTC is a bit harder because you see everything, and then it's a matter of like interpreting all the different variations of kind of like the same thing. So you got the basic things I look for are the ascending nature or descending nature. Like you can see it right here. You got this would come up, make a high, didn't retrace much, broke the high, retraced straight away, and then couldn't break the high. That just tells me that there is no momentum. It's ascending, which signals move to the downside. So yeah, that sort of increases the probability. And you can see the exact opposite here. It came down, breaks the low, makes a low, sorry. Little retrace, not much, breaks the low, retraces straight away, and then up.
And so when you said that you market sold, are you looking here at this like 1 hour doji to sell, like because of the indecision there? Like, are you sure that the indecision is going to lead to more downside action, or are you waiting for like more of a bearish 1 hour candle before you would exit? Like, how is it that you knew here where you're like, this is where I'm going to get out?
All right. So on this type of setup here, the rule is you go back to the most recent low. So like, if I just move all this shit, let me just grab my mouse.
I love this shit. I see JB talking about this stuff all the time, and I should pay more attention myself.
I cut and paste all of his messages into a Word document, and it was like 36 pages long.
What a parrot. All right. So I always bang on about the 2 highs and 2 lows pattern. And the trigger for that is when you get a counter trend green candle. So that right there is the perfect example. It's counter trend because it didn't break the low of this candle, and it's green. So that triggers me in.
Yeah.
The other setup for situations where you have the ascending like this. Oops, that was pretty shit. So it's the most recent low. So you have this, you see your setup here, right? I'll put it on replay actually. That'll give a good all right, so I see this, right? Say, all right, I've got an ascending. That tells me it's likely to move to the downside. Sure enough, moves down. Not that convincing, so I wouldn't have done anything yet. That's a bit more convincing. So now I look back at the price action here and see how we move up, make a low, move up, make a low, counter trend, and then break. So the rule is most recent low. Whoops. So I put my order right there. Tight stop. Actually, probably would have put it there, to be honest. That doesn't, whoops. The target doesn't matter to me because I'm just trying to ride the trend as much as possible. And then just let it play out. Probabilities are in my favor. Yeah. And then once we get to that point is when the management takes over. So at this point, we've broken the low. Our new high is there because that's the last place price is rejected from. So it allows me to move my stop down to basically nothing and continue in the trade until the low is broken again. And that's when I can move my stop down and lock in some profit. And that's also when I can start loading up on orders. So if you see here, we've got this little bit of a messed up thing. It's not that great, but I could probably put a target there. Tight stop again. And it just broke down anyway. Oh, it got me in there and out. So that would have taken me out, but by that time I would have had this profit locked in there above that most recent high. I don't know if you can see it. It's like low, retrace, counter trend, and then down, break the low. So that would have been the high. So it would have taken me out with just over 3%. That's The risk
awesome,
management, the risk management section of this strategy is so crazy. Whereas if this had have continued down, that would have been like double profit with only still 1% of risk in the trade. And then when you get a strongly trending market, you just load orders on top of each other, one after another, and you've always only risked 1%. So it's just very, very, very tight. And in Forex, it's even better. I rarely ever have a more than 10 or 12 pips stop loss in Forex with this strategy.
And do you pay attention to things like, because on the 1 hour when I re-entered this afternoon, I looked at that formation, I looked at this little double bottom, and then I looked at this sort of formation, looked at similar sort of price action as we have sell-offs, and then we make these double bottoms, and then we continue to sort of retrace towards the previous highs. Are you looking at that sort of thing, or are you just like blinkers on, this is the strategy, I'm sticking to that?
Well, if you actually look at this here, this is 2 highs, 2 lows, counter trend candle. I would have been in there, but I was busy today.
So that's where you would have entered here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, well, I would have targeted that bottom candle body right there.
Purely because it didn't break the previous low.
Well, purely just because of this price action here. That's like the setup. That's the setup in the same way as this is the setup for me. If you get what I mean.
Yeah. So that's signifying selling action, and then that's signifying that there's going to be buys within the next sort of closing candles.
Yeah, basically, that's just the way that the market reacts.
Yeah. When
there's buying, that's how it reacts. It's an uncanny like formation. It took me a while to get my head around it, but if you, like, once you've seen it, if you look for it, you'll see it everywhere, especially on certain things like ETH and like Euro pairs, Euro USD, Euro JPY, USD JPY as well is very, very common, and it's very reliable as well.
I find that as a crypto trader, that ETH is incredibly reliable. You see the same things playing out more often than not, and they respect it more often than not. And that's why I put so much emphasis on ETH, because it's exactly like what you said. That's really cool, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
No worries.
That's fucking cool. All right, Ads. Should we continue having a look at a couple more pairs? LTC is one that we were talking about beforehand that we have to have a look at.
Yep.
There's I'll share it inside the Discord, and I don't often pay too much attention to what people are saying on Twitter, but I'll find this thread somewhere on a guy that's has done like a really incredible comparison on previous cycles when it comes to LTC was one that he emphasized on, and BTC, where he talks about BTC right now being at the start of the fifth wave of like the larger weekly macro moves, and he did one on LTC as well. And when I looked into it, I was just like, holy shit, it's absolutely fucking incredible. And Plan B as well, who talks about the stock to flow ratio. Everyone was bashing that previously. A lot of people were on board. A lot of people were bashing it. Is well and truly on track when it comes to BTC and a lot of these other majors as well. So for myself, talking about LTC beforehand is not just because of that thread that I saw, that is absolutely one to pay attention to. And one of the interesting things that this guy spoke about in this thread, which I really related to, is that when it comes to like major bull moves, LTC tends to be like one of the first real parabolic majors to move, and it ends up being one of the last to move within a cycle as well. So looking at where we stand now on LTC, especially when you look at it on from a crypto standpoint, if we go to the daily time frame ads and bang on Unimoku, I'm not sure if you have it on your chart. And then we put it on the crypto timeframes, being the 20, and go same as chart. Yes, that doesn't change it. But look at where we are now, like textbook edge-to-edge trade playing out. And I think if we head towards this supply for BTC and ETH, where we might see some wobbles, this will be like an absolutely beautiful edge-to-edge trade where we'll get a retest at the bottom of the Kumo, and then we continue on with within the cloud. And you look at the structure here to the left-hand side, there is very, very little holding that back once we get past this supply zone. So for me, ETH is one I've been scaling into a little bit, even though that we come to a point where we've maybe started getting towards those oversold, overbought conditions rather on our indicators. But I think for me, long term, LTC is one of my longer term holds for sure.
Do you because of that overbought condition that we're seeing now on Steamroller RSI, and undoubtedly,
can we just say for a second how fucking good is Steamroller?
Yeah,
it's ludicrous.
But some of the other oscillators will say very similar things. Can you see something like this occurring, staying within the cloud structure and then continuing up?
That's absolutely a possibility. If we don't hold here at this part of the Kumo, it depends on the retrace that we get on BTC, because as I was saying beforehand, LTC very heavily correlated to BTC movements, and we're talking about the USD pairs here. LTC is certainly one of them. So depending on how hard BTC retraces, LTC will be right there with it. But yeah, definitely. And when we look at the Kumo and the structure of the Kumo, or the cloud rather, these areas are acting as your major levels of resistance or support. And you can see here as we wicked up towards the bottom of the Kumo there, or the cloud, how it acted as a level of resistance. So this is the sort of the first level that I'd be looking at, that 170 level for a level to hold. And then you look at the structure of the Kumo there, there's not a great deal holding that back until we get towards the bottom of the cloud here. So I'm really just taking it day by day at the moment, but if we do retrace from there, I will absolutely be buying in as we head back down towards supply, if that demand, if that happens.
And I think the most notable level to be mindful of if we're looking at supply, let me just get rid of this stuff that I've got here. I'll keep Unimoku on. Would be here, this candle structure there, and if we do have a decent retrace, that's where I would be looking towards, and that would coincide very nicely with some of the lower extremities of this cloud structure at around 150, at 160, 155 thereabouts.
Yeah.
And then you could net something like if you're going to go for the whole shebang, you'd be looking at a 67% gain if we're looking for the move from that level of demand, which is within the cloud structure, to the top of the cloud.
Yeah, and what I love about Unicon, which is our custom Ichimoku indicator, is if you bang on your standard settings ads on Unimoku, and look at where the cloud aligns for that, it's exactly where you've placed your support level. So your cloud aligns directly with that, which acts as a significant level of support. So we've got a nice bullish Kumo twist here, indicating that we've got some really beautiful price action incoming, and we're in a sort of a bullish scenario. We've broken out of our standard sort of Ichi cloud, and then we start looking towards these levels as levels of resistance in terms of the Kumo. So I've spoken to some really some very well-known Ichi traders, and one being Zoran Cole, who did that $1 million ETH trade back in 2018 or early 2019. Is an advocate of using the double settings, the 20 settings that we used a moment ago. And then I've spoken to someone called Crypto Says, Joe, who is like a GAN expert and uses Ichimoku really heavily to forecast price action in the future. And he loves the standard settings. So I love to use the standard settings to look for breakouts, like a trend confirmation. So definitely bullish trend. And then I like to use the crypto settings as looking particularly for edge-to-edge sort of trades, but using it as a level of resistance once we've broken within the cloud. So there's benefit to using both. I think if you're stuck using like just one setting on Ichimoku, I think it would be in your best interest to look at the two different settings and how they provide sort of levels of confluence depending on sort of those major levels that you're looking at. And Art, I know you're one of those people.
Yes, I was just going to ask you if you can throw up the 50 EMA.
Absolutely can do that.
Have a look at that, because that's one of the movements that I like to look out for.
50 EMA. Let's make it a little bit easier to see.
We've got ads. We've got a tool, as we often do, the UTG EMA fan.
We can use that as well.
But yeah, that 50 EMA aligns really well with what you've got there around that 150 level, which correlates perfectly to my 38 fib.
Yeah, so what I find is that when you get that bull TK cross, with a strong up movement, and then you get the strong Kumo twist and push out of the cloud, it enjoys pushing back down to that 50 EMA. Yeah, and that lines up beautifully with everything else. Yeah. Beautiful movement.
Very nice find. Thank you so much for that.
And then also, like in the opposite side, if you go to the top of the cloud, just further at your top left of screen,
yes,
the opposite holds true as well. So just a little bit further, keep going, do that high up around the 320. So you see where you get that C clamp happening.
Yep.
As soon as I start seeing that C clamp, obviously this time it's completely shit itself, but quite often when you start getting that C clamp, the first movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see that forming, then quite often it'll drop down to that 50 EMA again as part of its first movement.
Oh, right. Okay. So this sort of movement here, and then it'll drop down to the 50 as a reaction to that C clamp.
That's right.
Yeah, nice. Very good find. Thank you.
Are you using any other EMAs, Art, or is it sort of 50 a part of the strategy, or are you using like your long-term ones?
I do use the longer ones when, like, if it's showing a history of like returning to the 100 or the 200, reliably. Then yeah, certainly. It's also a function of sort of what I'm up to. Like if I'm just looking for a short-term trade, then I just look at the 50 and I look to either short it or look for it as an entry, like you've got there on that cloud top at the current price action. That's usually what I'll look for it there. I made the mistake of going, I'm only going to look at that, and then in doing that, I sort of sold myself short on other actions. So I sort of loosened that up a bit now, just depending on what sort of time frame I'm looking at. I just take it as it comes.
And you're another person, Art, that like JB, similarly to him, I think you found your style now, and it revolves around itchy a lot.
But funnily enough, just recently, like the last probably 4 or 8 weeks, I've actually moved a bit away from it. Just because I was struggling to see it, especially when the markets are not doing a lot, when they're not trending nicely, then I find it more difficult to engage itchy. And so I've sort of been looking into using the UTG RSI together with Stotch Div, and then also just price action similar to what JB's been doing, I guess. But yeah, just been looking at a couple of things like that, and then bringing the itchy on as a last thing, and then doing comparisons and going, okay, yeah, that's what's happening. That's what I think is happening, or that's not what I think is happening.
And that's excellent. That's a really good way to confirm a bias, because you've got experience with Ichimoku beforehand, where you know that looking at it signifies a trend, whether it be bullish or bearish, and then you've got your Kumo twists or your edge to edge trades. It's a great way to layer that on as a confirmation bias.
Yeah, I mean, like looking at this movement here, I mean that's super clear. Like as soon as I see, like from that, it's the downtrend has been weakening all the way down to what's that? Must be about $102. And then you get that change in trend, and it starts heading up towards the cloud. As soon as I see that sort of thing, it triggers me, and I'm like, oh, okay, right, let's start paying attention now.
Yeah.
Because then I start looking for that TK cross, that bull TK cross, and then for the little pullback, like I wouldn't be surprised if that was a 23 pullback or something similar. Then I start seeing that, then it moves into the cloud.
Yeah, 23 pullback.
Even better. Almost a 38. Yeah.
Almost,
so
yeah.
So as soon as I start seeing that sort of thing, then I start looking across time frames, and it makes me pay attention to that.
No,
I love it. There's such a good mix of trading styles.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I love JB's one. I'm going to
that's awesome.
Try and find some time and have a bit of a fiddle with that.
Maybe you can get Dill to send you the 36 pages.
I was about to say, you can just send you all the rips.
I was going to send it to JB to get him to modify it and just check it and make sure it was all good before I put it out.
Make sure he digitally signs it down the bottom and stamps it.
And
NFT it.
NFT it.
Format it.
Sweet. Well, I reckon we should have a look at a couple of your favourites ads, one being XRP, and then we'll look at ADA.
XRP.
Come on, man. Don't be like, oh, XRP, like it's a surprise. You're the reason this thing pumped.
Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry. XRP. Let's get rid of some of the old TA. Like I said, I've been focusing so much on BTC currently. So some of the older TA is still there. It's still valid.
What have you been trading out of interest, bro?
I've been trading some ETH and I've been trading some BTC. Because I trade on such a high time frame, man. If the market isn't doing anything, neither am I.
Yeah.
And I just sit around and just wait for things to come to me, because I trade the absolute extremities of the move, and I'm more than happy to stay in a trade for so long that, JB might do 56 trades and I'll do 3. It just comes down to my trading style, because you can see the way that I do trade in the sense of I'm looking for absolute extremities and some retests to validate those zones, and then we come to the right hand side. You don't even need to worry about if your level's in the right spot, because it is, but that comes with doing it for so long. But when it comes down to the daily, it's just so reliable. So when we were down at 30k for BTC, that's when I was buying the most, and that trade is still in play. So I've been in a BTC long since 30k till now. And
you must be going insane, because I had 11 alerts go off. I'm just looking back through my alert channel that you unfortunately are a part of, like in the sense that I have to tag everyone to get the alert. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 alerts go off on the 11th alone, and then I've had about 20 since then. So I apologize for that.
You should be apologizing, because I'm the server owner. I can't mute the channel.
And you won't.
No. So it is what it is. But XRP looking like that level of supply is being retested currently. And my trading strategy is, simple but not simple, in the sense of it's hard to draw the zones in to the level of degree that I do without a lot of practice and patience. You probably are still that. But in the sense of XRP, it's looking like we're probably going to see it come down a little further. It's probably around to 90 cents, I think, in my opinion, where we do have a level of supply in this instance that's been tested pretty much to the cent. And then we are looking like we are overbought in terms of our steamroller. And of course, our RSI is looking in that same direction as well. If we're looking at gravy train, we're probably going to see it be green. And then that would further come down. If we do validate, or do come down a little further, you could look towards the top of that cloud, as we did discuss before. But you could probably see that if we draw some of these, levels of fibs in as well, we're going to see very similar price action, or very similar levels that we're used to in terms of the 38 as well. So for XRP, it's had a decent dash on the 4-hour time frame. On the daily especially, it has as well, and we are looking like we are faring the same way as most of the USD pairs are currently, where we're at the extremities of a swing move in terms of a daily time frame, where we've got we've had a swing from 50 cents to $1. That's 100% swing. And then we've got swinging from 30 RSI to 80 and of course the oversold condition to the overbought condition in terms of steamroller. So looking okay, but looking even better for a little bit of a pullback in regards to this.
Would you expect this sort of price action to play out, ads?
It can, but I always, in regards to risk management, when I come down to or come up to a level of supply, I'm not selling the entire position. Because you'd be a fool to sell the entire position. You'd be selling half, 30%, 40%, whatever is in your trade plan, moving stops up to well into profit, and then letting the rest ride. If we do have a scenario like this where we explode to the upside, well, you've still got some on the table to collect at the next level. So that's the play that usually comes to fruition when I'm looking at extremities like this.
Yeah.
I let the market decide where I'm going to exit completely. And I think that's the most appropriate way to approach it if you're going to trade a higher time frame like myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
All right, let's have a look at ADA, and then we might wind this session up, and then without going into the TA, I'll talk about a couple of coins that I'm in at the moment that I'm looking at some upside for.
Absolutely. So ADA in a very similar spot again. USD pair. The market is trending in this direction in terms of the old coins, especially. But if we're looking at levels to the upside even further, let's identify the highest point. The most notable, the highest quality level of supply currently for me in terms of liquidity, in terms of where the market, should end up in the longer term side of things, is about $2.40 with ADA. So still 40 cents in it, and we've come from $1 pretty much. So that's a decent 240%, or more 140% trade, from the lowest point. In the last couple of months, I guess we haven't got much to go in terms of breaking this current level of supply, which was created with some of these candles and liquidity before we had a leg down. So this even shows you that if you're paying attention to some of the price action and liquidity to the left-hand side, that is before a further or a large leg to the downside, it will retest and return to that level. But the highest quality, the most notable level for me is around that $2.40 mark tie for ADA. But that's obviously daily, 4-hour, 12-hour, those sort of time frames.
Yeah.
Can you just, sorry to interrupt there, can you just put on Unicon for me?
Absolutely. Yep.
It's a lazy 85% trade, that.
Yeah, a lazy a whole lot for not doing a whole lot. Unicon is one of the first trading view strategies that we ever created, and it doesn't fail to disappoint. If you're trading on a high time frame, if you want to set and forget, something like this is pretty accurate, as you could probably ascertain from just the price action that you've got in front of you on the 4-hour time frame. If you're looking at a higher time frame, even like a 1 day or even a 12-hour, should I say, then it gets even more accurate, but it gets even less frequent. So you can adjust that by dropping the time frame. The 4-hour time frame is probably the most notable, and you could even pair that with like something as simple as MA crosses or something of the likes of that, if you want to stay even safer or give yourself an extra layer to add to that Unicon indicator. But yeah, we've been live for about an hour now, so I think we should wrap up the live stream portion of tonight. Ty, you still there? He's disappeared.
Yeah, I am. Sorry, my dog was having a moment. Yeah, and I'll just, obviously, as we approach high time frame resistance on these major caps like F, BTC, there's means to be cautious, but I think that's going to be a very telling time as we approach that and particularly if we break through, we know that we are very much going to be in a continuation of this bullish momentum that we're seeing. So, as we approach these levels, I would advocate having some cash on the side. On the chance that we dip, but if we do continue up, which I certainly think that is likely given the sentiment around the market and where we are now and the accumulation that's taken place between this range, for myself, LTC absolutely is one that I think you should be paying attention to. ETC is another one, just because the correlation between ETC and ETH is just profound. It's ridiculous how well ETC respects ETH runs, and based on the bullishness of ETH and my personal opinions around ETH, ETC is a big bag of mine at the moment. One that is more high risk, but has definitely played out. And this was, I actually forgot all about this coin, is DENT USD is one that I'm in at the moment. And Doge has awoken, in my opinion. I think that's definitely one to be watching. I'm in Doge myself as well, full disclosure. I think, I originally set Doge as just like a fuck it thing. I bought an allocation. I'm not going to sell it no matter what happens. I'm just going to let it ride. But the more I look into it from a TA standpoint, the better it looks. So, and lastly as well, Neo USD. So continue to watch what Neo does based on what BTC does. But if BTC confidently breaks through this supply, or we retrace and then we have another go at it and break through this supply, I really think that Neo is one to be looking at for pickups, as it correlates really well towards it. And long term, FTT. What Sam and those guys are doing over at FTT is leading this market at the moment. They are light years ahead of anyone else in terms of their development and how fast they are progressing as an exchange, and as someone who's in this market, Sam in particular as well. So FTT token is related to the FTX exchange, in case you're not aware of what it is. Look at what CZ and what BNB have done, and FTT will be doing just that, in my opinion, in the next sort of 18 months to 2 years. It's really, really one to watch. So I'm accumulating that pretty heavily for a long-term bag, because I really think that what they're doing with the crypto space is really incredible. So those are my final words, but I'll just raise a one last glass to Dara, our mate. We love you, mate, wherever you are and what you're doing. I hope you're in a better place for now, but cheers to you, Dara, mate. You're an absolute champion. We miss you.
For those watching us on YouTube, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.